Three men cornered the Apache girl. The rancher stepped forward. "She's with me." The town sat quietly between wide open land and low hills, the kind of place where dust moved slowly and time felt older than the people living in it. There was one main road, a few small shops, a gas station, and a diner where everyone knew everyone else. Outsiders were noticed immediately, even if no one said anything out loud. Looks were enough. Silence often spoke louder than words in this town. Early that morning, the Apache girl arrived on the bus that stopped only once a day. The bus door hissed open, and she stepped down with a small bag over her shoulder. She was young, but not a child. Life had already made her careful. She wore simple clothes, nothing bright, nothing meant to attract attention. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and her eyes stayed low as she took in her surroundings. She had been to towns like this before. She knew the feeling, being seen but not welcomed. She was there to run errands for her aunt who lived miles outside town. Supplies were cheaper here and the bus saved her a long walk. She planned to finish quickly and leave before the sun climbed too high. That was always her way. In and out. No trouble, no attention. As she walked along the sidewalk, she felt it, the weight of eyes following her. It wasn't new. She had grown up learning when to stay quiet, when to move faster, when to trust her instincts. The town felt still, almost too still, like it was holding its breath. A pickup truck rolled past slowly. Someone laughed somewhere behind her. She kept walking. Across the street, the rancher was unloading feed bags from the back of his truck. He had lived near this town his entire life, though his ranch sat far enough away that he preferred the open land to crowded streets. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, weathered by years of sun and work. People knew him as steady, quiet, and fair. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. He noticed the girl without meaning to, not because she stood out, but because of the way the town reacted to her. He saw heads turn, conversations pause. It bothered him, the way some people looked at her like she didn't belong. He went back to his work, but his attention stayed sharp. The girl entered a small store near the corner. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of old wood and canned food. She moved quickly through the aisles, picking only what she needed. She felt safer indoors, where walls offered some protection. But even there, she noticed whispers and stares. A man leaned against a shelf, watching her too closely. She avoided his eyes and paid at the counter without a word. When she stepped back outside, the sun was higher. The street felt different now, louder, heavier. She adjusted the strap on her bag and started toward the next shop. That was when she sensed movement behind her again, closer this time. Three men stood near the edge of the street, pretending to talk. They weren't loud, but their attention was fixed on her. She felt her chest tighten. She told herself to stay calm, to keep walking. Panic never helped. She remembered her aunt's words, "Keep your head clear. Fear makes noise, calm makes space." She walked past them, but they didn't stay behind. Their footsteps followed, not fast, not slow, just enough to let her know they were there. Her heart beat harder. She scanned the street for help. A few people were around, but no one met her eyes. Some turned away. Across the road, the rancher noticed the shift. He saw the men fall into step behind her. He saw her shoulders tense, the way her pace changed. He knew that look. He had seen it before, years ago, when fear had no place to go. He stood still, watching. Not because he hesitated, but because he needed to be sure. He believed in acting with purpose, not anger. The men moved closer to her as she neared a narrow space between buildings. A dead end. She realized it too late. She slowed, then stopped. Turning around, she faced them. Her voice was steady when she spoke, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. She asked them to move. They didn't. They stepped closer instead, blocking her path back to the street. The town seemed to shrink around them. From where he stood, the rancher could see it clearly now. This was no misunderstanding, no harmless moment. It was a line being crossed. He felt a familiar heat rise in his chest, not rage but resolve. He wiped his hands on his jeans and stepped away from his truck. People noticed him moving, but no one said anything. He crossed the street with long, calm steps. Each step carried years of lessons about fairness, about doing what was right even when it was uncomfortable. He wasn't looking for trouble, he was ending it. The girl heard his boots before she saw him. Solid, certain. The sound cut through the tension like a breath of air. The men turned slightly, distracted. That was when he spoke, not loudly, not with threats, just clear enough to be heard. "She's with me." The words hung in the air, simple and powerful. They changed the shape of the moment. The girl looked at him, surprised. The men looked too, measuring him, realizing this wasn't going to be easy. For the first time since stepping off the bus, the girl felt something loosen inside her chest. She wasn't alone anymore. And the town, quiet as ever, watched as everything began to change. The words the rancher spoke did not fade quickly. They stayed in the air, heavy and firm, like a fence placed exactly where it was needed. The three men stood still, surprised by how calm he sounded. They had expected shouting or anger. Instead, they faced something harder to push against, quiet confidence. The girl did not move at first. She stood close to the wall, her back straight, her eyes moving from the rancher to the men and back again. She did not know him, but something about the way he stood made her feel safer. He was not leaning forward. He was not clenching his fists. He stood like someone who had already decided how this moment would end. One of the men gave a short laugh, trying to break the tension. He said something light, something meant to sound harmless, but the rancher did not answer. He kept his eyes steady, his body between them and the girl. The silence stretched. It made the men uncomfortable. The street felt different now. People nearby slowed their steps. A woman paused near the diner door. A man pumping gas glanced over more than once. No one stepped closer, but they were watching. Moments like this did not happen often in the town, and when they did, everyone felt it. The rancher shifted his weight slightly, not to threaten but to stand firm. He did not touch the girl. He did not need to. His presence was enough. He spoke again, still calm, still clear. He told the men they should move on, not as a request, not as a command. Just a fact, like saying the sky was blue or the road ended ahead. The men exchanged looks. They had not expected resistance, especially not from someone like him. He did not look afraid. He did not look excited. He looked certain. That kind of certainty made people question their choices. One of them took a step back. Another followed. The third hesitated, pride holding him in place for a moment longer. Then he stepped away too. They muttered among themselves, pretending they had never meant anything serious. Slowly, they walked back toward the open street and disappeared into the noise of the town. The rancher stayed where he was until they were gone. Only then did he turn toward the girl. His voice softened when he spoke to her. He asked if she was all right, not rushed, not loud, just honest. She nodded, though her hand still shook slightly. She thanked him, her voice quiet but steady. She did not explain. She did not need to. He understood enough. He asked where she was headed. She told him she had one more stop before catching the bus back. He glanced at the street, then at the sky. There was time. He told her he would walk with her, not because he thought danger was still there, but because it felt right. They walked side by side, leaving a little space between them. He did not ask too many questions. He knew trust took time. The sound of their footsteps filled the silence. With every step, the girl felt the tightness in her chest ease just a little more. As they passed the shops, people looked at them differently now. Some nodded at the rancher. Others looked away. A few looked at the girl with something new in their eyes, curiosity mixed with thought. The moment had been seen. It could not be undone. At the next store, she stopped. He waited outside, leaning against a post, watching the street. He thought about how easily things could have gone another way, how small choices made big differences. He did not see himself as a hero. He saw himself as someone who had done what anyone should do. When she returned, she thanked him again. This time she smiled. It was small but real. He nodded and told her to take care. He watched as she walked toward the bus stop, her steps lighter than before. The bus arrived soon after. As it pulled away, she looked out the window once more and saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, already turning back toward his truck. She carried the moment with her, like a quiet promise that not everyone would turn away. The town returned to its usual rhythm, but something had shifted. Stories would be told later, changed by memory and opinion, but the truth stayed simple. Someone had stepped forward, and because of that, everything after would be different. The bus carried the girl away from town, but her thoughts stayed behind. She sat by the window, holding her bag tightly on her lap. The road stretched out in front of her, long and dusty, yet her mind kept replaying what had happened. The moment when fear had closed in. The moment when a stranger's voice had changed everything. She did not know the rancher's name, but she knew his presence had given her something important, relief, and a quiet strength she had almost forgotten she had. As the bus moved farther away, the town returned to its normal pace. People went back to their routines. Doors opened and closed. Conversations resumed. But beneath the surface something lingered, a question unspoken but shared. What had they just witnessed? And why had it taken one man to do what others had not? The rancher drove back toward his land, the sound of the truck steady and familiar. The wide fields greeted him like old friends. This was where he felt most at ease, where the noise of the world softened into wind and open sky. Yet even here, his thoughts did not settle easily. He replayed the moment too, not with pride but with concern. He wondered how many times the girl had faced moments like that before, how many times no one had stepped forward. At the ranch house, he unloaded his supplies and fed the animals. The work was grounding. It always helped him think clearly. As he worked, he remembered his father's words from long ago. Simple words spoken during long days of labor. Do right when you see wrong. Don't wait for permission. Those words had stayed with him all his life, shaping quiet decisions no one ever noticed. That evening, news traveled the way it always did in small places, slowly but surely. At the diner, people spoke in low voices. Some praised the rancher's actions. Others shrugged, saying it wasn't their business. A few questioned why he got involved at all. But no one denied what had happened, and no one forgot the way the girl had stood there, alone, before he arrived. The next morning, the girl reached her aunt's home just as the sun rose high. The land there felt safer, more familiar. Her aunt noticed the change in her immediately. The girl moved differently now, with a little more confidence in her steps. When asked about town, she hesitated, then told the story in simple terms. No details meant to stir anger, just facts. Her aunt listened carefully, her face calm but serious. She told the girl she had done nothing wrong. She told her she had handled herself with strength. And she told her that sometimes help came from unexpected places. The girl nodded, feeling understood. That night she slept better than she had in a long time. Days passed. The rancher returned to town later that week for supplies. The street looked the same, but it felt different to him now. People greeted him more openly. A few thanked him. Others avoided the topic entirely. He accepted both reactions without comment. He did not want attention. He only wanted things to be better, even if just a little. Near the bus stop, he saw the girl again. This time, she was not alone. Her aunt stood beside her. The girl noticed him first. She smiled more openly now and walked over. She introduced him to her aunt, who thanked him with sincere words. The rancher nodded, uncomfortable with praise but grateful for the moment. They spoke briefly, about the weather, about the road conditions, simple things. But beneath those words was understanding. The girl told him she would be coming to town more often for work. She said it without fear. He nodded again, offering help if she ever needed it. No promises, no expectations, just openness. As they parted ways, the rancher felt a quiet sense of peace. Not because he had changed the world, but because he had done something that mattered. The girl walked toward the bus with her aunt, her shoulders relaxed, her steps sure. Over time, the town adjusted. Slowly, subtly. People became more aware. A little more willing to look up instead of away. It was not perfect. Change never was. But moments like that had a way of planting seeds. The girl carried her experience forward, not as a burden but as a reminder. She knew now that fear did not always get the final word. That strength could come from calm voices and steady presence. She held on to that lesson, letting it shape how she moved through the world. And the rancher returned to his routines, unchanged on the surface but deeper in his understanding. He knew there would be other moments, other choices to make. He hoped he would always be ready. The town remained quiet as it always had. But beneath its silence, something new had taken root, a memory of courage, a reminder that doing the right thing did not require applause, only action. And in that shared memory, both the girl and the rancher found something lasting, respect, strength, and the knowledge that one moment could change many lives without ever raising a voice. Time did not stop after that day. It never does. Life moved forward, steady and quiet, just like the land around the town. But even as days turned into weeks, the moment stayed alive in small ways, shaping choices and changing paths without anyone announcing it out loud. The girl began coming to town more often. At first, she stayed close to her aunt or traveled during busy hours. She noticed how the streets felt less heavy now, not perfect, not completely safe, but different. She walked with her head a little higher, her steps more certain. Fear had not disappeared, but it no longer controlled her every move. Some people greeted her politely now. A shop owner smiled and asked how her aunt was doing. A woman at the bus stop made space beside her. These were small things, but small things mattered. They reminded her that she was seen not as a problem, not as someone to avoid, but as a person. Still, there were moments when old feelings returned. A look held too long, a laugh that felt wrong. When that happened, she remembered the rancher's calm voice. She remembered how he had stepped forward without shouting, without making it about himself. That memory grounded her. It reminded her she had the right to stand where she was. The rancher noticed the changes too, not just in the girl but in the town. People spoke more carefully around him. Some asked his opinion on things they never had before. He did not seek leadership, but it found him anyway, settling quietly on his shoulders. He accepted it the same way he accepted hard work, without complaint. One afternoon he saw the three men again. They stood near the edge of town, talking among themselves. They noticed him too. Their laughter faded. They did not approach. They did not cause trouble. They simply watched him, then turned away. He felt no victory in that. Only relief that the line had held. At the diner that evening, a conversation started that surprised many. Someone asked what the town stood for. Not in anger, not in challenge, just curiosity. People shared different opinions. Some spoke of tradition. Others spoke of fairness. The talk stayed calm, honest. It was the kind of conversation that rarely happened before. The girl heard about it later from her aunt. She listened quietly, understanding that change did not come all at once. It arrived slowly, carried by moments and choices, by people deciding not to look away anymore. One morning, the girl faced a test of her own. She was walking alone when she heard footsteps behind her. Her heart raced, but she did not panic. She moved toward a public space, toward people. The footsteps slowed, then stopped. She did not turn around. She did not need to. She kept walking, steady and calm. That day, she realized something important. The rancher had stepped forward once, but she was learning to step forward too, in her own way, with her own strength. Later that week, she saw the rancher at the feed store. This time, she greeted him first. They talked for a while about simple things, weather, work, the long road outside town. She thanked him again, though she had already done so before. He nodded, telling her she had done the hardest part herself. She smiled at that, knowing he meant it. As summer moved on, the town changed in small, quiet ways. A few signs appeared supporting respect and unity. Nothing loud, nothing forced, just reminders. People watched out for each other more. Not everyone, not always, but enough to matter. The girl began helping others too. She spoke up when she saw someone uncomfortable. She offered company when someone looked alone. She did not think of herself as brave. She thought of herself as aware. That awareness had been given to her in one moment, and she chose to pass it on. The rancher continued his life much as before. Early mornings, long days, quiet evenings, but he noticed something else now. When he walked through town, he was not alone in his watchfulness. Others noticed too, others cared. One evening, as the sun dipped low, he stood at the edge of his land, looking toward the road that led to town. He thought about how simple words could carry great weight. How saying "she's with me" had meant more than protection in that moment. It had meant belonging. It had meant responsibility. The girl, miles away, stood under the same sky. She thought about how easily that day could have gone another way, how fragile moments were, and how powerful they could be when someone chose kindness over silence. Neither of them knew what the future held, but both knew this much: one choice had changed many paths, and those paths were still unfolding. The town slept quietly that night, unaware of the slow shift happening within it, but change does not need noise. Sometimes it grows best in silence, guided by simple actions and steady hearts. And so the story moved forward, not with an ending but with momentum, carried by courage, respect, and the understanding that standing up once could inspire many more to do the same. The seasons changed quietly, the way they always did in that part of the land. Summer gave way to cooler mornings, and the wind carried a different feeling now. Life did not become perfect, but it became more honest. People were more aware of one another. They noticed who walked alone. They noticed who stayed silent. And sometimes they noticed when silence needed to be broken. The girl continued to grow into herself. Each visit to town felt less heavy than the last. She no longer rushed her steps or kept her eyes on the ground. She learned which places felt welcoming and which ones required caution. Most of all, she learned to trust her own voice. Not the loud kind, but the steady one inside her that reminded her she had worth. She began working part-time at a small place outside town, helping with supplies and records. The work gave her purpose and independence. People came to know her for her kindness and reliability, not just for where she came from. She listened more than she spoke, but when she spoke, people paid attention. The rancher watched these changes from a distance. He never followed her story closely, never tried to be part of it. He believed people should walk their own paths. Still, he felt a quiet pride when he saw her pass through town with confidence. Not pride in himself, but in the idea that doing the right thing could help someone stand taller. One afternoon, the town faced a small test. A misunderstanding at a shop caused raised voices and discomfort. People gathered, unsure of what to do. In the past, many would have walked away. This time, someone spoke up calmly. Another person joined in. The situation settled without harm. It was not dramatic. But it mattered. The girl witnessed it from across the street. She realized then that the town had learned something, not from speeches or rules, but from example. One moment had taught many people that courage did not need to be loud to be effective. The rancher, meanwhile, grew older in the same quiet way he always had. His days remained full of work, his nights peaceful. He did not tell stories about what happened. When asked, he simply said he did what anyone should do. He believed that was true, even if experience told him not everyone would. One evening, the girl visited the ranch with her aunt to deliver something they had promised. She had never been there before. The open land stretched far and wide, calming and strong. The rancher greeted them politely, offered water, and listened as they spoke. It was a simple visit, filled with ordinary conversation, but beneath it was respect. mutual and real. Before leaving, the girl thanked him one last time. Not just for that day in town, but for what it had given her afterward. He nodded, telling her she had carried the moment forward herself. She smiled, knowing that was true, but also knowing she had not walked alone at the start. As years passed, both their lives moved forward. The girl eventually left the area to follow new opportunities. She carried the lesson with her wherever she went. When she saw someone in need, she remembered how it felt to be seen. She remembered how one calm voice had changed everything. The rancher stayed where he was, rooted in the land he loved. He continued to live quietly, to notice when things felt wrong and to act when action was needed. He did not think of his life as special, but to some it was. The town never became famous. It never made headlines. But it became a place where people remembered a moment when someone stepped forward instead of away. That memory stayed alive, passed quietly from one person to another, and that was enough. Because sometimes the most powerful stories are not about heroes or victories. They are about ordinary people choosing kindness, choosing courage, and choosing to stand beside someone who needs it. And long after the words "she's with me" were spoken, their meaning continued to shape lives, steady, lasting, and true.